Hatapu, Namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Kasakma Keperu with another broadcast for you. In this broadcast, I want to talk about, does God have a frequency? But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button located at the bottom. And if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. Also, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. You can do so for as little as $1 or $20 per month. You get exclusive access to instructional videos, videos on the esoteric, on spirituality, videos that expand on my teachings and go beyond. I also have some free ebooks for you. You can download them today, start reading. Links are below. Just click on those links and you'll get more information and expand your knowledge on spirituality. So welcome to another broadcast. Let me adjust my headset. There we go. So today I want to talk real briefly with you in regards to, does God have a frequency? I'm not sure if any of you saw me on the O'Shea show last night. That was a good show we had. And we talked about hypnotherapy, its practical application across the board, especially dealing with people with post-traumatic slave syndrome, if that is a legitimate term, or those who are dealing with childhood trauma and rape victims. I kind of honed in on those particular ailments, as hypnotherapy can be really effective in those areas. So let's talk about, does God have a frequency? I want you to understand one thing, because I was talking with somebody the other day and they kind of brought up the point. They asked me, does God right wrongs? And you have to look at things in this way. Let's say you have your CEO of a corporation, right? And you are administrative assistant and you have an issue. Say, for example, with a coworker. Do you go directly to the CEO to get a resolution to the issue with your coworker, who could be another administrative assistant or a clerk? No, you go directly to your manager. So we have to understand that God, when God created all that there is, one of the first things that God put down as a foundation is ma'at, the law, order. And in that ordering, there is a hierarchy. So God does not directly intervene in our affairs. In fact, God has what we call on the tree of life as administrators or managers. We have those naming conventions or nomenclatures because it best illustrates how the cosmological system works. You have a means to take your grievances to, and that is the oracles. Okay. And if you cannot reconcile those differences, then you can invoke spiritual power. But I want you to understand something, that God has bigger and better things to do to interfere on our little lives. You see, there's many, many other planets that are populated by other beings, other solar systems that God has to worry about. So God does put in place administrators and managers that can help with us righting the wrongs. And one of the things that we need to kind of keep in mind is this, that at any time we can come in contact with God from a metaphysical perspective. We can become one with God. We can experience God. We can experience God's love, God's justice, God's power. We can experience all of this. This is within our grasp. However, there are prerequisites to that, and it comes down to frequencies. You see, when I work with individuals in hypnotherapy, I tell them there are, let's say, we could say four primary states. There's the gamma, there's the beta, the alpha, and the theta. The beta is the waking state. Now, when I want to put you into trance hypnosis, my goal is to put you into the theta state. And that is the state where you can be highly suggestible, meaning that if I give you a post-hypnotic suggestion and say that this drink is vodka, you will believe it's vodka if you're drinking it, and your blood chemistry will react as if there's alcohol in there. But it takes to get into, but in order for that to happen, I have to get to that frequency. And we all have a means to tap into that frequency. Now, many in the Christian religions believe that all they need to do is ask God for help or be good in their lives, and God will directly intervene. It doesn't work that way because God gave us free will, and we have the freedom to even ignore what is right and do what's wrong. And God will say, "You reap what you sow. I'm not going to interfere." You see, when we look at people in the world doing wrong, and we know who we're talking about, the rulers of the planet, the 1%, God is not going to intervene and stop them from doing wrong because, follow me here, in a sense, they are fulfilling their purpose. They are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They are doing according to order. Follow me here, this gets deep. If we understand that there exists an infinite number of worlds and experiences, and God wants to experience each one of those, then each one has to have a theme and a scenario to play out. And when we talk about infinity, there's actually an article that came out in the magazine. I forgot which magazine, but it was really good. It talks about, can you imagine infinity? And you can't. It's very difficult. But you have to understand that in this particular space-time continuum, the ruling elite, whatever name you want to call them, the cabal, the 1%, are doing what they're supposed to be doing because this is how it's supposed to be played out in this space-time continuum. And you happen to be here to play your role as well. So this, in a way, is order. This is the order. This is the way it's supposed to be. If I write a screenplay where Luke Skywalker's father is Darth Vader, okay, then that's the way in that particular episode, because we know this, George Lucas wrote 3 episodes, which is The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars: A New Hope, and Return of the Jedi. In that particular episode, The Empire Strikes Back, Luke finds out his father's Darth Vader, right? So that's the way it's supposed to be in that particular episode. But in another episode, he finds out that his sister is Princess Leia. So what I'm saying to you is that the ruling elite, they rule in this space-time continuum, and there's a reason, because it was written that way. It was created that way to play itself out as a scenario because God wanted to experience this particular space-time continuum. But that doesn't mean that you are just to sit back and allow the ruling elite to do all kinds of commit all kinds of atrocities against humankind. No, no, absolutely not. We have to right that wrong. But in writing that wrong, we have to understand that in order to do that, we have to tune into God's power, tune into God's frequency. How do we do that? Well, I've already told you, like when you want to go into a trance state, or I work with you through hypnotherapy, there are different states of consciousness. There's gamma, there's beta, there's alpha, and there's theta. So too does God have a frequency. And that frequency we call 5D, fifth dimension. Fifth dimension is the realm or the dimension of oneness. No separation between things. The minute you think of something, it instantaneously appears, because in 5D, it's devoid of space-time. There's no linear space-time. You have your 4D realm, which we live, 3 dimensions of space, 1 of time. But now when you start looking into 5D, you're looking into oneness. You're looking into love, supreme love. And it was these rulers, when they first concocted their plan to take control of the planet, that they said to themselves, we have to create humankind to go along with its own enslavement, to be its own taskmaster. So what they did, the ruling elite, we're talking thousands of years ago. Well, really, there's no time, but let's just say thousands of years ago, because the only thing that exists is a now moment. You see, they concocted a plan to create humankind, to socially engineer humankind. And they were very successful in doing it, because one of the things that was chief among their plans was to cut us off from source, cut us off from God, cut us off from 5D. And they were successful. This is why our third eye, our pineal gland, which connects us to source, connects us to God, connects us to 5D, has been calcified. We have been cut off from our sixth sense, for our ability to tune into an alternate state of consciousness, 5D, and to experience oneness and to experience love. Because a direct result of oneness is love. They're intertwined with one another. This is why Ma'at symbolizes oneness, whole, and also is the goddess of love, divine love. So they socially engineered us through a cumulative process over time, didn't happen all at once, so that we would, two things, we would not use our pineal gland, our sixth sense, and we would function primarily out of the left hemisphere of the brain, which has us look at everything as separate. And with those two categories complete within the makeup of who we are, they could orchestrate or implement their plan, which is the total takeover of the planet. And we would be okay with that because we wouldn't know any other way. We didn't know what it was like to connect to 5D. We didn't know what it was like to think through both the left and right hemisphere of the brain. So we thought the way that we were was okay and that we were very healthy. But what we didn't realize was that they had wiped our minds of our true history and who we really are, which is divine beings, which is God men and God women, who operated, again, out of the pineal gland, our sixth sense. We use our sixth sense, and we use both hemispheres of the brain. But because they wiped the memory clean and they hid the artifacts and the temples and the monuments, they hid them from us, buried deep within the earth. We never understood the true power that resided within us. The people that you see today existing in this modern world that we call a modern world are a product of hundreds and hundreds of years of social engineering, or thousands of years of social engineering. It took the ruling elite time to craft us, to craft our psyche, to craft who we are, to rely on the five senses only, to rely on the left hemisphere of the brain only. It took a while for them to get us to that point, but they got us there. And they were so successful at it. They were so successful at it that anyone coming out of the woodworks and saying, hey, listen, you people are sick. You people are not well. You're only using 50% of your mental capacity. And you're not using your sixth sense. You're sick. The ruling elite was so successful that we began we began a campaign to vilify those who would bring that message to us of truth. Anyone who dared stand up and tell us that we're only using 50% of our mental capacity, we made them seem loony. We made them seem like they're crackpots, nuts. And then what we did, we went even further because we then became a society that was deaf, dumb, and blind. Our mental acuity started to regress. We started to our progress started to retard, and we started to not be at that height of mental acuity. We then when individuals came along who exemplified what normality was, like your Nikolai Teslers, your Einsteins, your Galileos, they exemplify what normality should be. We hailed them as geniuses, freaks of human nature, when in reality, in ancient times, they were common. People like them were common. But because our progress is so taken back, we hailed them. And even today, when you start talking about the sixth sense, integrated brain thinking, people think you're a kook, you know? They laugh at you. They tell you to get out of here. When you tell them that who we are today, human beings, are a product of social engineering by the ruling elite, they think you're a conspiracy theorist. They laugh at you. Do you understand how limiting it is to think in terms of to use just the five senses? Do you understand the power that resides in using both the right and left hemisphere of the brain? Yet we primarily use the left hemisphere of the brain. And no one in academia has called this out. You know why? Because they're trapped in left brain thinking. You see, those in academia, they think that if you call out the fact that a temple was buried deep within the earth, hidden from us, and we so-called rediscover it, and that there's some knowledge there that we can regurgitate, that now you're demonstrating the height of intellectual capacity. No, you're not. You're merely regurgitating from the tombs, from the temples, from the metaneta, the information that was left there, but you don't have the means for which to use the same process of thinking that they did to be able to create the same wonders. You don't know how to think as they thought. Let me put it to you this way. If I write a book on a certain discovery and I give you that book and you go to Europe and you start reading from that book and you have it committed to memory and you start talking about it, the theories that are in that book, and again, you have it committed to memory, people will think you're like, wow, you're a genius. You discovered that? No, you're just regurgitating the information that you got from the book. I discovered it. I wrote it in the book. You will never be like me, who was the originator of the information. So when you have the hoteps and you have those individuals in modern Western universities who go and espouse the information and they disseminate it, and we give them accolades for their intelligence. They're not intelligent. They're merely like a parrot, parroting information. Because the left hemisphere of the brain cannot create anything new. It cannot, it only works through a paradigm. It needs a reference point. It is the right hemisphere of the brain that is where intuitive wisdom comes from, where new inventions comes from, where new knowledge comes from. And in ancient Kemet, Egypt, we taught students to think out of the right hemisphere of the brain using the Tahuti or thought level of intelligence, which is stealing the thought process, purging the mind of thoughts so that you can connect to source, to connect to the Akashic records. Quantum physics only now admits that nothing is destroyed in the universe. It is stored. So I want you to consider that who you are is not complete. Who you are has been tampered with by the ruling elite. They have genetically engineered you. You are a laboratory experiment that has been successful for them. Now your goal is to get back to the way you were supposed to be. Awaken the third eye, the uchet, to use both hemispheres of the brain to 100% capacity, to connect with 5D source. You cannot ask God. Let me explain this because this is where Christians have it wrong, Muslims have it wrong, the Catholics have it wrong. You cannot ask God to right a wrong in this space-time continuum. God is not going to interfere. And the reason being is because God does not take sides. And that is very troubling for some. And you know this if you go to the oracles, let's say, for example, the I-ching, the Chinese oracle I-ching, and you have a fight with somebody, a friend, a mate, or whatever, and you ask the I-ching, am I right? I-ching is not going to give you information on if you're right or wrong. It may allude to that, but what it wants to do is give you information to mend that relationship, to make it a harmonious relationship, to bring you two together. If I go to the I-ching and I say, did OJ do it? You know, it's not going to tell me. It's not going to give me an advantage. It's not going to like if I go to the I Ching and I say, "Hey, they're rolling the dice. Tell me, will it come up snake eyes?" I Ching is not going to tell me. It's not. God is not going to play favorites. It's not going to give you an advantage over someone else. That's not how God works. God is a supreme being with supreme wisdom. And all God wants to do is to bring us together in harmony and in love. And to do that, God cannot favor one above the other. He's no respecter of a person. Janet, oh my, good day. From down under. Rod, Hetepu, spiritual elevation, namaste. Isaiah, Hetep, spiritual elevation, namaste. I have my famous line for all my Australian friends. That's not a knife. This is a knife. You know, remember Crocodile Dundee? I love that film. So I want you to understand, God's not going to play favorites with anybody. He's not going to come along and grant you favor in a war or in a battle. He will allow you to use your spiritual power, the power that he has endowed you with, to be victorious. Yes, you can tap into your power, which is God's power, but God's not going to directly come and say, I shall side with you and strike the enemy, so-called enemy, down. Because God doesn't see the other person as your enemy. He sees that other person as your brother or your sister. And he's not going to intervene to favor one above the other. It doesn't work like that. Maybe in that fictitious book called the Bible, or maybe in some movies you've seen, but that's not how our supreme being works. Can you imagine what a world it would be if you have a God that plays favorites? It'd be very interesting. Very interesting. So getting back to the message that who we are has been crafted, has been put together in a laboratory. And we will fight tooth and nail to maintain our enslavement. Yes, we want to be enslaved. We do. Because you'll have people who have their PhDs, who have their degrees, who have written papers and published books, who will so-called espouse the truth and claim how intellectual they are because they have mastered the left brain, but are nothing but nincompoops because they're very limited in their thinking. And then when you ask them, how is it that Nikola Tesla and Einstein were so brilliant? They don't have an explanation. They don't have an explanation. Well, they were flukes. They were savants. Do you think that everyone is capable of that? Well, possibly. That's what they'll tell you. It's not possibly. It's just how we're all supposed to be. Yes. Every one of us is supposed to be just as intelligent as an Einstein or a Tesla. If we were brought up in the right conditions, meaning that we were brought up using both hemispheres of the brain, we would be. Tesla said it. Tesla admitted it. He said, the way that I am able to create such wonders is by visualization. I actually visualize the invention in my mind through my right brain. He told you the secret. But yet still universities teach left brain academics. And they know the truth. They know that that's just parroting or regurgitating information, that doesn't produce true geniuses. They know that. Because you see, those who control this planet don't want us encroaching upon 5D experience. Because when you start on that path, you begin to realize that everything you've been taught has been a lie, and you start to experience and feel love and oneness. And that is profound, and that changes everything. It shifts the feeling and sentiment of the planet to something radically different. Radically different. And that's what the ruling elite doesn't want. They want us trapped in segregative thinking. They want us looking in and saying, that's my enemy. That's my enemy. That's my enemy. I belong to this political party, and you're on that party. Stand over there. Let's talk about impeachment. Let's talk about an election. You see, they can't have the masses of the population on this planet functioning out of 5D because that's the God frequency. Because 5D is oneness. 5D is that's what 5D is. That's the God frequency. And there's aids that we can get to experience that, like ayahuasca, DMT, deep hypnosis meditation that takes us into those states to experience those. And everyone that has experienced this, it has been very profound and life-changing. No one has come out of the 5D experience saying, I hated it. It was awful. It was so frightful. Everything was bliss and happiness and oneness. Oh, please don't send me back there. Please don't send me back there. I don't like love and oneness. Everyone has experienced it, wanted to go back. And our challenge is to get us back there, get us back to who we were. See, Christians think that if you just do good in life, good things will happen to you. That's not going to happen. That's not how it works. They believe God favors some people. That's not how it works. They believe God rewards those who follow him. That's not how it works. God doesn't care if you follow him or not. God says you reap what you sow. I put the law in place. I put the administrators and the managers in place. You have an issue, go see them. And the administrative and the managers are your spirits, your deities, your gods. You go see them when you have an issue. You don't go directly to God. He's the CEO. He's got bigger and better things to do. He's probably thinking about a severance package. I don't know. You understand what I'm saying? God does not bless you because you're special. God does not punish you because you did something wrong. No, that's not how God works. God gives you power. God gives you power. And God says, I have given you everything you need. Now use it. Rely on self. Awaken the God state within you. Connect to me, and you will have all that you need. For I am Ra, father of the gods. My daughter, Ma'at, lays down the law, order. And if you live by Ma'at, live by truth, Ma'at, then your life will be Nechem, meaning sweet. Live, Amen, peace. Peace means not favoring one over the other. Peace means being centered. God is peace, a supreme peace. God is Amen. God is no thing. He's no one thing, yet he is all things. You see, our ancestors played with puns. He's no one thing, yet he's all things. He is the no thingness. God brought himself into being. That's how powerful God he is. He brought himself into being. And God was alone. And God says, I want to experience. But yet, you cannot have an experience where there is only one, subjective. Then God said, I shall create another. And from one came two. And then God had something to interact with. Therefore, God could experience things now. Do you understand? And because God became two, the other aspect was still a part of God. So God still loved that other aspect. And everything is one. And when you pass on, you will go back to source. You will go back to oneness. And you will experience that oneness. It's not a theory. It's not an equation. It is real. What is not real is the illusion that we exist in, which is individuality. It is all a holographic experience so that we can learn from it. But you're told that it's real. You're told that it's external from you to keep you separated, to keep you fighting one another. But when you reject those notions and those ideas of separateness, of individuality, and you say it's all one, it's all source energy, then the ruling elite starts to get worried. Oh, we got one of those here. Oh, do we? You're one of those 5D people, aren't you? Those God frequency people, aren't you? I think we're going to make you disappear. And the trick is this. Once the planet shifts to enough people who subscribe to the notion of 5D, the Illuminati, the ruling elite, will disappear. Because we will shift to a different frequency, to a different plane of existence to where they do not exist anymore. They won the battle thousands of years ago. They won. They destroyed our civilizations. They genetically engineered us and crafted us to be deaf, dumb, blind, stupid. They won. But we're slowly coming to our senses. We're slowly awakening to the truth of what happened. And a new vibration is taking over the planet, and it's got them worried. And everyone now is talking 5D experience, 5D. And now they're scrounging to put out their propaganda. Now they're trying to do everything they can to keep the war and the strife going. You see, all this stuff about Me Too, the SJWs, and the LGBTQ, and the reparations, and the ADOS, and all these political things. All these things are just the ruling elite. They're scrounging and trying to do the best they can to create factions, to create war, to create arguments, strife, debate. They got to keep it going, because if we start talking about oneness and we start using our third eye, their days will be numbered, and they know that. So they got to turn up the heat. They got to say, women, your man has oppressed you. You should hate him. Hate him. Black man, hate the white man. White man, hate the black man. You gays, you're oppressed, and everybody hates you. You gays, everybody hates you. You should do something. You should do something. You should hate them back. Hate them back. You Asians, they hate you. You should strike back by trying to buy their country or do something. You've got to do something. They hate you. Hate them back. You see, they have got to create that frequency of hate, of war, of separation. They've got to keep that going. They've got to keep it going. Because if they don't, our natural inclination is to come together and become one. That is natural within us. God built that within us, that ability to come together as one. They are always, keep this in mind, going to mess with you. They are going to keep the propaganda going. They're going to keep it pumping it out through mainstream media. They're going to say things. They're going to create fictitious enemies. You've got to impeach Trump. Trump is the enemy. Saddam Hussein is the enemy. Aliens is the enemy. They've got to keep it going. They got to keep it going. North Korea is the enemy. Because if they don't create a fictitious enemy, if they don't get you to hate something, you're going to go back to your default mechanism, which is 5D: integration, oneness, and love. Left unchecked, that's where we'll get to. Eventually, that's where we'll get to. So they're going to have to pump out their propaganda. They have to pump out that propaganda. Get you to hate one another. They got to get you to find some issue that can create separation between us. Don't fall for it. Connect back to source. Don't buy into it. See, the only way to win the game is not to play it. That's the only way. Because they need you to take sides. That's what the whole Hegelian dialectic is about. They got to get you to take sides. And most of us are puppets, and we're playing that role. They don't care about you. They may make it seem that they care about you, but they don't. They just want to use you as a means to cause strife. This is why you'll find that every time you turn into the conspiracy theory arena, there's always an enemy. oh, reptilians are the enemy, reptilian shapeshifters, and then you have, oh, there's these other aliens, they're controlling the planet, they've got the planet. Why is it that we have to see that which is external from us as an enemy? Why is it all the time we have to have xenophobia? Why is that? Because they've trained us to think that way. If you go back and look at all the 1950s and 60s science fiction movies, The Blob, The Day the Earth Stood Still, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, those were all propaganda meant to get you afraid of them, the others, self, to get you to be fearful, to panic, to operate in a lower frequency, the animal nature. You are God. Your connection has been severed to source. Get back to that. And one of the ways you can do that is to meditate every day, because when you meditate, you activate the right hemisphere of the brain. It connects you back to source. You become more relaxed, more calm. You become more of an integrated brain thinker. Your third eye starts to open. You start to get intuitions, premonitions. You start to operate out of more of the love frequency. Why do you think Western religions don't want you to meditate? They say, oh, that's of the devil. Why do you think that they put out that propaganda? Because they know when you meditate, you connect to 5D. You connect to God frequency. So, my beloveds, I hope this message has resonated with you. If you get an opportunity, please donate to the channel. I want to thank you for tuning in. And until my next broadcast, this is Kasank Ma Keparu, son of Maat and Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Till my next broadcast, I'm in Ra.